is there any doubt about who is the best light heavyweight MMA fighter of all time?
When you're the youngest ever guy fighting for the title, and you open up a fight with Shogun with a flying knee.
Jon versus Francis was the biggest and my most anticipated fight.
With being out for 3 years and in a new division, there's a lot of questions.
One can argue whether Fedor is a more excellent heavyweight fighter than Stipe, or that Kamaru Usman is a better welterweight than GSP. But when it comes to the light heavyweight GOAT, that must undoubtedly be Jon Jones. He has never lost a fight in his professional career, and the only L on his resume is by disqualification while he was destroying Matt Hamill with elbows on the ground. He is the youngest champion in UFC history, and if we disregard his last couple of performances, he was such a dominant fighter that nobody could come even close to beating him. However, after dominating for years and clearing the UFC Light Heavyweight division, it seemed that fighting at 205 pounds didn't satisfy the appetite of Jon Jones anymore. He and his team announced that he has his radar focused on the heavyweight division.
My goal is to be the most technical, the most well-conditioned, the strongest out of all the heavyweights.
He started his UFC career 15 years ago, dominated the light heavyweight division, and now he will fight for the heavyweight belt with a mission to conquer this category. Jon Jones' personal life has been a roller coaster over the years. He lost his mother in 2017 at age 55 after a long battle with diabetes, and his older sister Carmen died of a brain tumor before her 18th birthday. Those tragedies significantly impacted Jones and could be the reason why he involved himself in plenty of legal troubles and controversies. Such emotional damage can be a bad influence on anyone.
I hate you. I hate you.
But Jones tried to overcome that by focusing his energy inside the octagon. Born into a sportsman family, he was raised in a home environment where people valued sports, which was a motivational boost for the light heavyweight GOAT. His younger brother, Chandler, is an outside linebacker for the Las Vegas Raiders, while his older brother, Arthur, is a former football defensive lineman who, during his career, played for the Baltimore Ravens, Indianapolis Colts, and Washington Redskins.
Arthur and Chandler got in a fight. Me and Chandler ended up jumping Arthur.
Even though his father, Arthur Jr., a pastor at a church in Binghamton, did not want Jones to participate in martial arts.
Get him, get him, get him.
Bones' drive for combat sports was stronger than his. Before his MMA career, Jon was an outstanding high school wrestler and state champion at Union and Dicot High School in New York.
Wrestling is pretty similar to an actual fight, you know.
Following his brother's footsteps, Jones also played football as a defensive lineman, where he got the nickname Bones from his coach due to his slight frame. Jon would start studying criminal justice at Mauriceville State College. However, studying and training martial arts simultaneously proved to be more than what young Jon could chew, so he dropped out of college to focus on his MMA career.
Who do you think is the greatest UFC fighter of all time?
Jon Jones.
It's astonishing how little time Jones needed to become an excellent martial artist.
I trained their whole life and they never make it that far, so yeah, I think I'm just a natural.
And signed with the UFC. He started his MMA career on April 12th, and after beating his first 6 opponents by stoppages, he signed with the promotion on August 9th, 2008. The fact that Jones could sign with the best MMA organization in the world after only 4 months of MMA experience is truly unbelievable.
I made it to the UFC after only training for 4 months, which is really uncommon.
The fighter that welcomed Jones to the big league was Andre Guzmão. Bones, back then young and inexperienced, made some mistakes, and one could spot that there were flaws in his game. Nevertheless, he won that fight via unanimous decision.
Went for a spin. Guzmão going for the takedown. And here is a jumping knee attempt.
Johnny Bones Jones.
Jones jumped into the high competition in his next fight, facing UFC legend Stephan Bonnar. This time, Jones displayed a dominant performance by executing takedowns, suplexing Bonnar to the canvas, and even connecting with a back elbow that hurt the American Psycho badly.
Great round for Jon Jones.
With such a dominant performance, Jones proved to everyone that he had talent and skills like no one else.
Here is the wrestling technique.
Johnny Bones.
In his next bout, after securing a modified guillotine choke against Jake O'Brien, the UFC was more than impressed with the young prospect and rewarded him by signing a new 4-fight contract with the promotion.
O'Brien se agarra de la pierna, cierra la estrangulación. La sigue cerrando Jon Jones.
Matt Hamill is the first and only fighter with a victory over Jon, but that victory is a definition of a bittersweet moment. Sadly for Jones, the referee for that bout was arguably one of the worst referees in MMA, Steve Mazzagatti.
All right, gentlemen, give us a good, clean, fair fight.
Jon was undoubtedly the better fighter in that fight, dominating Hamill. However, at the last minute of the first round, Bones would try to finish Matt on the ground by throwing a few illegal 12-6 elbows.
Look at that ground and pound.
He's doing a good job.
The referee stopped the fight, and after reviewing the replay, it was determined that those elbows were unfortunately illegal. This could have been ruled no contest, and most of the referees would have determined it as such. However, Matt Hamill could not continue, and referee Mazzagatti declared him the winner.
Due to intentional elbows, there's been a disqualification of Johnny Bones Jones.
Jones lost that fight via disqualification.
Therefore, the winner is Matt Hamill.
To this day, that bout is the only loss on his resume. That loss would not demotivate the young prospect.
Everything happens for a reason.
Well, that's a tremendous attitude.
And prevent him from achieving his goal the following year. He defeated Brandon Vera and Vladimir Matyushenko by TKOs, displaying dominant performances while using his elbows as the primary weapon. After beating Matyushenko, the UFC president Dana White could not stay indifferent, and he shared his thoughts about Jones. Vladimir Matyushenko is a guy who I have a lot of respect for, and I didn't think it was going to happen that easily. Jones is the real deal, and he just catapulted himself tonight into the top 8 in the world. Tonight solidified it. He's got to keep his head together, stay focused, and keep doing all the right things in training.
Did you expect it to be this easy?
He's smart, good-looking, and badass. He's going to make a lot of money. This kid is going to do very well, Dana said. In the next bout, Bones would face the strong wrestler Ryan Bader, and in this fight, he would implement his submission skills, finishing Bader via guillotine choke in the second round. At this point, Jon was 6-1 in the promotion.
Oh, he got hands all over! Jon Jones!
And if we disregard the DQ loss to Hamill, he was also unbeaten, finishing and dominating everyone the UFC had put in front of him. Granted Jones his shot for the light heavyweight title against the UFC and Pride legend Mauricio Rua. Initially, the Brazilian was supposed to defend his title against Rashad Evans, who was forced to pull out of that fight after injuring his knee during a training session. And what better replacement than the new rising star, Jon Jones. On March 19, 2011, at UFC 128, the future met the present after landing a perfectly placed flying knee. Hurting the champion badly, Jones would dominate Shogun throughout the 3 rounds. The Brazilian fighter was no match for the new rising star. After throwing a body shot and knee to the head, Jones dropped the champion, and the referee had seen enough.
To the body! And it is all over!
This is where Jon Jones' era really begins to take off. In his first title defense, he faced Rampage Jackson.
Jon, how much has your life changed, if at all, since winning the belt?
Jones later admitted that he was really feeling Rampage's power in his hands, and therefore had to have a very cautious approach in that fight. Once again, Jones proved to be one of the most complete martial artists in the world, finishing Rampage via rear naked choke.
Finish this fight! Please try to pry it off. It's all over!
Even though they were now good friends and training partners, Jon and Rashad Evans were scheduled to fight for the UFC title next. Nevertheless, another injury will prevent Evans from having his title shot, and he will be replaced by the karate specialist Lyoto Machida.
Got like a Rubik's Cube on one side and a somewhat enigma on the other side. How do you break this down?
Lyoto has a very awkward stand-up style of fighting. He uses his karate credentials as the primary weapon to find some openings, neutralize his opponents, and knock them out cold when an opportunity shows. Machida caught Jones with good combinations and rocked the champion in the first round. Bones would prevail and enter the second round to show Machida who's the real light heavyweight king by finishing him with a standing guillotine choke. Lyoto was unconscious and fell on the canvas as if his soul had just left his body, while Jones walked off like a boss.
He's in trouble! Trying to finish this fight! It is all over!
And still,
Jones finally faced his friend and training partner in the next title defense, Rashad Evans, even though Suga claimed that he studied Jon's weaknesses while training with him.
That's a secret. There is no one. You know, anybody can lose any given day, and he's going to find that out.
He was dominated throughout the 5 rounds and lost that fight via unanimous decision. Vitor Belfort is the first fighter who came close to convincingly beating Jon Jones. Before the TRT was banned from the UFC, Vitor Belfort was a monster. His muscle mass was insane, like the Incredible Hulk, with his back muscles starting from the top of his head. The mohawk hairstyle was a bonus, an extra ingredient to his intimidating look. He wasn't just looking like a beast, he was also knocking people out cold. He had incredible power in his hands, and everyone knew that if Vitor touched you with his right hand, you would go to sleep.
But, I appreciate my religion, and I respect everyone else's religion.
On September 22nd, 2012, these two MMA royals clashed. Belfort was about to pull off one of the biggest upsets in UFC history. As the first round went on, Belfort got into a situation to execute an armbar. He adjusted himself perfectly and extended his body, brutally squeezing Jon's hand into submission.
Can he get it? He might break that arm, Mike. He might break that arm.
To this day, people are amazed how Jones could withstand that submission attempt and escape. As the fight went by, Jones wore Vitor down, beating him badly before submitting him in the 4th round via key lock.
Now he's going for Kimura. It's all over!
In the next title defense, Bones faced the undefeated and undisputed gangster from Oregon, Chael Sonnen, or more precisely, the undisputed champion on the microphone.
And I'm still undefeated, exactly as I had predicted for you guys.
The bad guy was no match for Jones. He would get dominated and finish in the 1st round.
All over him right here in the 1st round. Jon Jones!
However, in his mind, Sonnen is still undefeated and never lost a round.
And I will still be undefeated and undisputed.
And then, the toughest test in Jon Jones' career was against the Swedish fighter Alexander Gustafsson. After beating all those elite fighters, Jon began to live in a utopia where he believed that he was invincible.
I had this thing where I just felt invincible.
He revealed that he didn't even prepare appropriately for the fight with Gustafsson.
Definitely didn't give it my all.
That was evident in the octagon judging by how slow he started that fight, and he arguably lost the 1st rounds to the Mauler. In a back and forth fight, Jones convincingly won the later rounds and edged the Swedish warrior on the scorecards while delivering an epic battle for all the ages. This was his 6th title defense. And with that, Bones broke the record for the most consecutive UFC Light Heavyweight title defenses.
So you want to know what a good fight that was? Neither the champ or the challenger will be here.
In his next bout, Jones faced the very dangerous Brazilian fighter and future champion, Glover Teixeira. Jones dominated that fight for 5 rounds, especially in the clinch, where he clearly beat Glover in every exchange. If the previous fight against Gustafsson was close, this fight was a flawless performance that reminded everyone who Jon Jones is. And then it was time for Jones to meet his biggest rival, Daniel Cormier. The standard narrative was that if someone could cause danger to Jon, that would be Cormier, especially with his wrestling credentials. DC has an Olympic wrestling pedigree and was undoubtedly the best wrestler in the division. However, no matter what the narrative said, Jones not only edged Cormier in the striking exchanges, but also out-wrestled his rival, proving once again that he is a complete martial artist who can defeat you on the feet and out-wrestle you as well.
Look at this. Goes the distance. Still!
After some controversies in his private life, Jones was out of the octagon for over a year, and when he returned, he faced Ovince St. Preux. Even though Jones did not look as dominant as always, he convincingly beat St. Preux, indicating that he could beat tough opponents even on his worst days. This turned out to be a warm-up fight for Jones before facing his bitter rival Daniel Cormier again. On July 29, 2017, these giants clashed again.
He's a bitch. He's a bitch.
But this time, Jon executed a perfect head kick that wobbled the Olympian, which was the beginning of the end. Jones followed DC and finished him with vicious ground and pound strikes.
Hard time reaching Jon. With the ground and pound. That should be it. Trying to succeed. He's out.
This victory turned out to be another bittersweet moment for Bones, considering that he tested positive for a banned substance, Ciryl Gane metabolite. This was a dark moment in Jones's career because people started questioning the legitimacy of Jon's legacy, considering that he might have used banned substances throughout his entire career. This victory was later ruled as no contest.
I don't know, man. I thought the fight was going well.
In his return after over a year of absence, Jon would face the mauler, Alexander Gustafsson again. Jones controlled the Swedish fighter from the start until the third round, when he ended his fellow light heavyweight, putting any concerns about who was the superior fighter to rest.
The fight has really been the leg kicks. Good entry there by Jones. Oh, in trouble here.
The next title defense was against Anthony Smith, and Smith had nothing for Jon, who displayed a masterclass performance once again, defeating Smith on the scorecards.
Jones not slowing down. Bones Jones!
After dominating for almost a decade, Jon's motivation to fight at light heavyweight faded away. That could have been seen in his last two sloppy performances against Thiago Santos and Dominic Reyes. Both of those fighters put up an excellent fight for Jones, and many believe he lost one, if not both of those bouts. It was time for Jones to explore new waters in search of greatness, which was his move to the UFC heavyweight division. The biggest threat for Jones in the heavyweight division was the African monster, Francis Ngannou. But now that Francis is gone, it seems that Jones will dominate this division just like he did in light heavyweight. Jon Jones possesses everything it takes to become a dominant heavyweight champion, primarily due to his versatile fighting style. Jon Jones throws kicks and elbows, mixes strikes with punches, works from the clinch, and goes for takedowns, making him very unpredictable as a fighter.
He has decided to try to beat Chael Sonnen with his own strategy.
His high fighting IQ may be the biggest problem that his fellow heavyweights must deal with.
Straight left. Straight left.
Jones is a master at creating distance due to his reach advantage.
Back and forth, jump, kicks.
He uses his reach in the best possible way, using flawless technique in the cage, and has been described as one of the most innovative and constantly evolving fighters in UFC history. The diverse kicking technique, mixing with front kicks to the head and body, roundhouse kicks to the upper body and legs, and of course, the most significant kick he has at his disposal, the oblique kick.
At AKA. Jon loves that front leg side kick to the thigh and being very effective with that straight left to the body, and he goes high with that kick. There's that short elbow.
Makes Jones one of the best and most feared fighters in the octagon. Jon is also an excellent wrestler. Unlike traditional double or single leg takedowns, he prefers to execute takedowns from the clinch, especially when his opponents are distracted by his elbows, knees, and strikes. On the ground, he maintains excellent control, finds openings, and delivers punches and elbows from hell. All things considered, we might be looking at the most complete fighter the world has ever seen, and if his mind and discipline are in the right place, nobody can stop Jones from taking and defending the UFC heavyweight belt.
Hurry up quick, El Jefe's coming soon. Sit up straight when she enters the room.